Thanks, Emily, for those encouraging words. Guys, mission is what we're all about. And just like Emily says, we need to get better at it. One of the biggest challenges that any of us have ever faced in ministry has happened just during these last number of months with this global pandemic. Just one more thing that we never learned in seminary, right? As we've been scrambling to keep our people connected and learning how to live online, I think we're all waking up to the fact that nothing is going to be quite business as usual when this pandemic is over. Everything related to ministry and mission is going to be changing. So we thought it would be really helpful if we checked in with some of the leading voices in our fellowship and heard just how COVID-19 is changing their playbook. Check it out.
How has COVID changed our playbook? 2 words, adjust and trust. We're adjusting our methods, and they're different. A lot more technology, a lot more video technology. I have to carry a digital backpack. We're trusting in Jesus more than ever. That is good. It also impacts our leadership styles. Either you are a frozen leader, you're a hesitant leader, or you are an agile leader. We're becoming more agile, making decisions quickly so that we can stay on top. It also encourages us, COVID has changed our playbook, to remind us of the mission. Jesus is number one. Satan wants to distract. Don't let him do it. Stay on mission for Jesus. And how has it? It reminds us that we need to shepherd our people, do the one another's, and remain on mission so that we don't lose the joy of our salvation. You can't lose your salvation, but you can lose the joy of your salvation. It also exposes weaknesses. So it's shored up, calls us as a staff to function together as one so that we can take the message of Jesus in a way that the world has never seen it before.
I would say that the big way that COVID-19 affected us is that it revealed to us, kind of made it clear that people interact in our live in-person ministries and in our online ministries in almost a seamless way. So in their mind, it's not that different to watch services online than it is to come and see those services in person. And as we studied the metrics and understood how people did that, when they watch us online for a few weeks, they do not feel disconnected from biblical community or from the church. So they don't feel the same necessity to quote-unquote show up in person like they used to. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages to that, but it's pretty clear that that's the way that they function now, and we've had to pivot and adjust in order to do ministry in that paradigm.
I think there's a few things that this entire pandemic has brought to the surface in our church. One is it's reminded us of the importance of personal shepherding. When the pandemic first hit and we were all quarantined, we literally went through 7,000 people in our church and called them and followed up with them and checked in on them. And I think that this process unearthed the importance of ministry still being a personal reality. It's amazing how we could forget that, but it drove us to check in on people and see how they're doing. And that mindset to be personal in pastoring people is something that will follow us regardless of how long COVID lasts and beyond. I think the second big thing that it triggered in us was an importance of our online ministry. Now, our church, because it's large, has been very active with technology and video and all of those types of things, but this really drove home something that will follow us going forward. Think of the analogy of like a restaurant being in not only the dine-in business, but having the add-on of a carry-on business, a carry-out business. And then realizing that carry-out was something that shouldn't just be an add-on, but should be something that is strategically part of your ministry. I think the third thing that COVID reminded us of is the priesthood of believers. So often churches and large churches like ours build their evangelism strategy around come and see, around gatherings. And yet, wherever we go as Christians, we are the church and we're the priesthood of believers that brings the message of reconciliation. We are ambassadors of hope. And when you can't gather, you're forced to recognize that your people need to be on mission where they are. And so I think following COVID, this is going to remind us that we need to really press into our people about the priesthood of believers and the ministry that they all have in an evangelistic sense, and that we can't just rely on the work of the church. And so strategically that needs to follow us. And one more, as we think about post-COVID, it just reminds us that the church, while it can have methods and methodologies, that ultimately it's always tied to its message, and that the methodologies always need to be innovative to reach people going forward. So much of what we've relied on for years in our context, we can't right now, and it doesn't look like we'll be able to for the foreseeable future. So it just means we always need to be prayerful about innovating on how to reach people, and how to be mindful of how to do that. And so following this crisis, we need to continue to think about how do we constantly innovate new ways to reach people.
How has COVID changed our playbook? Well, really, digital has become the new personal, and we've been focusing on digital discipleship and what it means to have church every day, not just Sunday. We understand that this is a connection point and a front door to everybody that we want to reach. While these times have been challenging for us, we've been talking about how we can rise up and reach out. If we can step up in this moment, we will make a difference for the name of Christ. And so we've been focusing on ways to build bridges into our community and make a difference where there are genuine needs. And one of the things I've really liked about this season, there's many things not to like, but we're all rowing in the same direction. You kind of strip away all of the extras and you focus in on the mission, because a lot has changed, but the mission has stayed the same. Make disciples who make disciples.
This is great stuff. Thank you guys so much for sharing that, and I resonate so much with the things that you guys are saying. Here at Renew Church in Toronto, we've actually discovered that our online front door is way bigger than our actual front door. And so we're going to be using that for evangelism way more in the future. We've also come to discover that there are significant efficiencies that can be realized through online ministry. As a church that has 4 campuses, we've actually been saving significant money during this time, not having to rent facilities, and it's forcing us to ask the question, how can we continue to be more efficient with our resources as we move forward and direct more money toward mission rather than facilities? These are just a couple of the things that we're realizing. What is your church learning? As a fellowship, let's begin a conversation and let's start talking with one another and sharing the wisdom that God is bringing to us. And let's be sure to share it with other churches as well that could benefit. Remember, we are one.